Now, as with most videos that you see on this topic on YouTube, they're all exactly the same. 50% this, 40% this, blah, 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 and then just chuck it in the enclosure. No. If you want the best plant growth, the best ecosystem for your entire enclosure, it starts with the substrate. Everything needs to be perfect. So we're going to talk through not just the mixes and all this sort of stuff. It's far more in detail than that. We're going to go through the layers, because all the layers have different purposes. They all have different mixtures. They all have different everything. So to explain that further, we're going to have to go outside and look at the natural substrate in the land, because it's the same no matter where you are. Let's go to the forest. So we've come down here to the forest and we're going to explain the substrate. Yes, this is a different habitat to leopard geckos, but the substrate layers are still exactly the same. You've got this stuff, which is basically just where all your cleanup crew live. This is the same everywhere. On more arid areas, it's finer sand, drier sand. Further down, you've got this stuff, which is more mossy. This is thicker, this is more compact, and it's a lot more finer, so to speak. And then we go even deeper all the way down and we end up in the root layers. Now this is the firmer stuff. See how fine it actually is? That's how it works. Deeper into the substrate you go, the wetter it's going to get further down. Now with the more arid areas, you've got to go really deep to start getting any slight bit of moisture. That's when it starts getting really compact, like a solid brick of cocoa fibre. In the more arid areas, it's more dusty than sandy, and that's also why in the arid areas you don't really get like tropical grey isopods, orange isopods or anything like that. The cleanup crew in these arid environments, the extremely arid environments, are flies mainly. You see any Australian program and they're always squatting flies away from their face. That's why, because they're the ones that are cleaning up after the animals. Let me know in the comments down below how you guys that have bioactive arid setups, how you accommodate for a cleanup crew, because we can't just have flies swarming the enclosures. And when you see this sort of harder, crustier substrate on the top, that's just open plains where the wind has basically blown off all of that dusted stuff. It's just blown it all off. This is the layer underneath the actual top layer. And that's also why you only get very fine grasses and succulents in those sort of territories, those areas, simply because the succulents have got one big main root pointed down, that's it, and grasses have got loads and loads and loads of little tiny fine roots that can penetrate it nice and easy. They don't need that much water, that's why they survive there perfectly fine. Have you ever noticed I say perfectly fine and absolutely perfect and a hell of a lot of the times? Watch out for that merch coming out soon. I can't believe just how close to 10,000 subscribers we actually are. I'm actually thinking about doing some merch for that celebration. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. And if you haven't already, make sure you do subscribe. 86% of the viewers for this channel are not subscribed to the channel. That's mental. Let's head back to the studio. And welcome back to the studio. So now we are back. We understand that. We know about all the different layers, so let's start putting it together. First, we have got our tub just here. Now I'm only using this because the enclosure that I'm going to be using this for is 4 foot long. It's going to have different textures throughout the full enclosure. So we're going to have more firmer substrate. One side, the cool side, is going to be a little bit sort of looser. So if they did want to burrow, they can burrow. If they wanted to move stuff out the way to lay some eggs, they can do. It's just to add a bit more natural enrichment. It doesn't have to be the same texture all the way across. We're going to be using this just solely to explain it through the process. If you want to see that full enclosure build, the full bioactive leopard gecko enclosure build, that's UVB, the new infrared heat projector. It's full of technology. It's going to be absolutely fascinating. Make sure you do hit subscribe and that notification bell so that you do get notified when I do upload a video. While you're down there, hit the thumbs up button. But we're going to start here, the bottom layer. Now, in my enclosure, I'm going to be putting a drainage layer. Only a shallow one with a little drain in the corner, and that's simply because with succulent plants, when you're watering the succulents, the water tends to saturate the soil, but then run straight through and out the bottom. Now, I don't want it to just sit in the bottom layers of my substrate, so I want it to go through into a drainage layer, and I can drain it out of the drainage layer when needs be. But the mesh goes on top of the drainage layer. This is the substrate, because this is how to make an ARID bioactive substrate. The sand I've used is just general generic play sand, and the cocoa fibre is general reptile cocoa fibre. I've used general cheap and cheerful topsoil. The leaf litter I collected from outside, so this is very, very inexpensive for anybody who wishes to do it. The substrate we're going to be using is a lot finer in the bottom layers. So what we do, we go tub of sand, put it in. That's not enough sand. We'll put a bit more of sand in. And again, this is the bottom layer, as you can tell, so I don't want it to be too deep. Now, this, after the sand, again, one little tub of, it's a cocoa fibre / topsoil / it's got some decomposed leaf litter in there. It's just what I use as a bioactive substrate, and it's handy. It's there, I've got it, and it fits the job perfectly fine. I like to have the leaf litter in there because as the cleanup crew are eating away at it, the cleanup crew are then pooping out their leaf litter, and that fertilises the soil. So it's just a general mix, just like that. Level it all off. As you can tell, it's quite sandy, which is what I want. I want it finer in the bottom layer so it'll be more compact. So now we run around and just push down absolutely everything as firm as we can possibly make it. If you've got a vibration thing on the top, it'll do it even better. You want to get it as firm as possible because now is where you start putting your plants. Put your plants in where you need to go to, and then put the next layer on top of it. As you realised from the forest, the next layers are a little bit less sandy than this. They're a lot less fine, a lot less compact. So for this, we've got one layer of topsoil, another layer of, or we'll put half of the topsoil in. No, we won't, we'll put them both in. Why not? And then we'll grab another one of topsoil and put that in. Then one sand. Just like that. Then mix it all in. You don't need to worry about the bottom layers because the bottom layers are perfectly firm and compact, and it doesn't need to be a really massively amazing mix. Just mix it in, spread it around any plants you've got there. This is where the roots of your plants are going to spurge into. Eventually over time they will go into the more compact bottom layers, which will secure them into the enclosure really nicely. Get it all out the corners and just mix it up really nicely. Again, this layer has got a few more extra leaves in it. It's got a little bit of sphagnum moss, some little sticks. It's just naturalistic to what it would be in the wild. What do we do after this? Well, after this, hopefully this would have covered your plant roots by now. You've just got the plant sticking out the top. So now we'll need the top layer. This top layer is where a lot of the cleanup crew are going to hide. This is where they're going to hide. This is where they're going to rustle. This is where a lot of the animal enrichment comes into it. So what we're going to do, we have got one sand. Just sprinkle it over the top. This helps it compact down over time. Actually, we only put half of that in there. And then, again, one topsoil. But then, on top of that, I have got some leaf litter. Because if you didn't know, leopard geckos they don't live on deserts and stuff like that. They live on shrublands, grasslands, that sort of thing, rocky areas. But there is still some trees. So I just grab a fair few. This is oak leaves that I collected from outside about 2 years ago, and that's basically it. So I'll do that. That's covered in nicely. The cleanup crew are going to eat this. It's going to add hiding spaces. It's going to add little humidity spots. It's just going to be 100% naturalistic. And then I mix this top layer. I just gently move it around, nice and gently, and then compact it down. Now hopefully by this time, this is all the way around your plant species. It's all the way around, it's covered them. It's gave you the different layers, which is great for your plant growth. It's gave the top layer, which is great for your cleanup crew. And this is just an absolute perfect bioactive substrate for your arid species. As you can tell from the side, you can see the different layers. You can see that bottom layer where it's a lot more sandier, a lot more compact. Then you've got that layer there, which is all to do with where your plant roots all go. Then your plant roots will eventually come down here. It's just that. And then this top layer is just everything else. This is perfect. Now on top of this substrate, what you can do, you can get various plant boosting bacteria and stuff like that. You can go through to Bioactive Hertz, they've got plant boosts, all this sort of stuff. And you just basically put that around by the plants. That just helps the good start of the plants. I'm lucky because I've got an awful lot of little succulent plants and stuff like that I've been growing. They're healthy as anything, and they're going to be going in my big leopard gecko bioactive build. And I'm going to be using some of that stuff for that. And that brings us to the end of the video, guys. I hope you've all enjoyed it. I hope you've learned something. I hope you can now provide a much more enriching environment for your leopard gecko or your bearded dragon or anything like that. Let me know in the comments what animal you're going to be doing this for. I'd love to hear your responses. But anyway, guys, that's me out. Thanks ever so much.